For the first time in our nation's history, the adult obesity rate has bloated to more than 40%. We are in a crisis. That's why advances in modern medicine have been worth their weight in gold. And joining us with a promising new therapy is Dr. Patrick O'Neill, director of MUSC's Weight Management Center, and Tonya Turner, the center's associate director for clinical services. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So this is a huge breakthrough in medicine for weight loss, and I want to get into exactly what has been discovered and what the trial is all about. But first, Dr. O'Neill, can you tell us what the obesity crisis is like right here in South Carolina?
It's as bad and somewhat worse than the rest of the nation, particularly in some parts of the state rather than others. So we're nowhere near being able to conquer this problem. And as much as our attention has been focused, as it should be, on the pandemic, this is an epidemic that has been growing for a long time and shows no signs of abating.
And MUSC became almost the center for these clinical studies. Can you tell us a bit more about what it is and what was discovered?
We've been fortunate to be a part of a number of clinical trials of potential obesity medications. And in particular, we've been involved in several trials of a compound that's called semaglutide. Semaglutide is currently approved for the treatment of type 2 diabetes, but it's been studied very closely at a higher dose as a management tool to help with obesity, controlling obesity. So we've been in several of those trials. The most recent one that was reported last month in JAMA actually involved looking at semaglutide compared to a placebo, with everybody receiving pretty intensive dietary and behavioral counseling, including a diet with meal replacement products for the first 8 weeks of the 68-week trial. And what we found was that nationally, the participants who were on semaglutide lost on average 16% of their start weight. So if they were 200 pounds at the beginning, that would be 32 pounds, compared to a little less than 6% for the patients who were on placebo. The medication is an injectable. It's injected once a week by the patient with a very fine needle. And so we did see quite impressive weight loss.
Tonya, so it sounds like this is a multi-pronged approach. Can you tell us a bit more about just some of the patients that you see come through your doors and what the issues are, what the most common issues are that you tend to see, and how this might help sort of the population at large?
So with our program, from a clinical standpoint, we have obviously the research trials, which a majority of them incorporate the medication, but then also the dietitians have a large role in that. But it's not really that we're just educating on eating less or exercising more. There's also a lot of that behavioral component into those different research trials as well. And that's really what we use in our clinical programs at the Weight Management Center as well, is that we talk to people from a dietary standpoint as to what they should be consuming, how many calories they need to consume for successful weight change. We promote increased physical activity, but more so we have our psychologists working hand in hand with us so that we're really helping to kind of drive home what they need to do from a lifestyle perspective to get those things to actually happen for the short term and then also for the long term. We see a lot of people that come to us, this is not their first time attempting to lose weight.
Right.
And you see so much out there of how to do it, but really implementing it into your lifestyle is what I think that multidisciplinary approach really tries to drive home.
Anybody who ever watches cable, as I do, there are certain shows that are dedicated to kind of following people who are morbidly obese and their journey to trying to lose weight enough that they can get surgery in order to help them further lose weight. So over and over again, you tend to see the psychological component come into play. And people are constantly falling off the wagon, that they just can't seem to stick to this lifestyle change. Why do you think that is, Tonya?
I'll definitely direct this back to Dr. O'Neill, but I think the big thing is there's challenges everywhere you go. So with food and with exercise, you have social things, you have every day trying to have to make those healthy choices in an environment which really doesn't help us. There's food at every corner. all of the portions are larger, everything that we're doing, and especially even more so with COVID in the last year, we've been sedentary. We couldn't go out and do stuff. We weren't able to move as much as maybe we wanted. Gyms were closed. So there's lots of challenges getting thrown at people on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Well, this is a good place to take a break. So when we come back, I want to hear Dr. O'Neill's take on that. We're going to do that in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Dr. Patrick O'Neill and Tonya Turner of the MUSC Weight Management Center. And we've been talking about some successful trials that are being conducted right now. And I'm curious as to how close we are to this being put on the market. But Dr. O'Neill, can you tell us, would this type of therapy replace weight loss surgery?
Well, for some people, it could help to replace surgery or be an alternative. But in general, these medications are tested on people who are not necessarily in the weight range of obesity that surgery is designed for. But the amounts of loss we're seeing with medication are increasing with time. We're having more effective medications.
And there's different definitions of obesity. Would this work on anybody who is overweight, or would this be within a certain demographic?
Well, the standard we use is called body mass index, or BMI, and you can look up your BMIs based on height and weight. In this trial, it was primarily people with a BMI of 30 and above, in some cases somewhat lower than that if they had comorbid conditions such as high blood pressure.
I see. And there are so many health issues as a result of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart issues, you name it. Last question, I'll open this up to both of you. When do you think we're going to see this finally get out there on the market?
Well, this was one of a series of what are called phase 3 trials that have been done with this medication for this use, namely in obesity. So I'm sure when all the data get analyzed, a report will be presented to the FDA by the company, and then we'll see what the FDA has to say.
Wonderful. I want to thank you both for joining us today. Really fascinating stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're back after this.